They stole my scholarship, and after my nuclear revenge they tried to kill me. I'm posting this on a throwaway because I don't want people finding me. People have gone to great lengths to find me, and attempts were made on my life. As in, I was almost run over and someone tried to burn our house down. To get an understanding of how big my revenge on them was, and what caused me to do it, let me give you some context. This happened in 2004. I attended a crappy high school that was constantly cutting costs on everything, and I mean everything, except teacher wages since it was the only way to keep them. It was an alternative school. The main antagonists of this story were the evil principal, who looked at every situation only for his own gain, and his bratty son, who happened to be in the same class as me. My father is an IT specialist, so I was around computers all my life. This was a known fact. I'd constantly break into school computers just to play Super Nintendo, and most of the time no one cared. The computer lab teacher, Mrs. B, loved me because I'd constantly be repairing for her. Meanwhile, the evil principal's son always claimed to be a computer expert, but lacked any real skills and mostly just bullied me and my friends. Anyways, our school had about 200 computers and they all sucked. Our principal was a cheap man, so he never bothered to invest into new computers for the school. This fiasco began when our school received a huge grant to upgrade our computers, but instead of getting us high-quality computers, he ordered 250 mediocre computers and then pocketed the rest of the fund. This information will come up later. When the 250 computers were delivered, Mrs. B and I got to work while the principal and his son went off for a family vacation as it was spring break. We gave up our spring break because the principal threatened to fire Mrs. B if anything went wrong. So after 2 days, we had assembled 50 computers, but there was a major issue. None of the computers had keyboards. I decided to boot up one of the computers to start data transferring when I come to see no operating system has been installed. That's right, no keyboards, no operating system. The computers couldn't even install the most basic apps. The principal elected to not get operating systems because it saved him $100 per machine. That stupid cheap man. I ran to Mrs. B, and the fact I was running meant she knew something was up. I was not a running type of kid. Oh God, Mr. Evil Principal didn't buy keyboards or an operating system. She was dumbfounded, got up and exited. Suddenly the overhead lights came on, and we booted 60 computers to find not a single dang one had an operating system installed. Now she panics. She is a by-the-book gal and calls Evil Principal. I didn't get to hear much, but at the end I heard him say, "I don't see this as an emergency, I'm with my family." She responded, "Sir, this is an emergency, we need keys, without them there's no computers. You got 250 paperweights." He bellowed back, "That sounds like a you problem. Buy the keys yourself." She tried to plead with him, explaining the keyboards are expensive and she couldn't afford it. Then, that horrible man responded to her, "Either I have running computers or a new computer teacher by Monday." Oh, I was pissed because I've never seen Mrs. B cry. So I dialed my dad and asked for a solution as he was off, and he said he'd be right down. We set up, and my dad and his 3 IT crew showed up. They were pissed too, but they had beer and brought the party to school. Now this wasn't a break the law plot, just to have some fun while doing a crap ton of free work, as they were on vacation and were going to be here for days. We had 30 disks of an unnamed operating system and my father's corporate key. His work gave him one for home use, and he was ready to help. My dad's work also had a bunch of extra keyboards they were able to give us. So, 3 days later we had 250 computers set up, wired, full school wired network, internet updated, all the school software installed, everything. Beers were drunk, we camped in the school, we even watched movies off a projector. It was a blast. The next Monday everyone came back from vacation to see shiny new computers. We spent the next 2 days assigning logins to the staff and students, teaching others to use the new systems. Mrs. B was hailed as a hero by staff, and everyone knew I helped. Now, the betrayal. You see, Mrs. B's deeds didn't go unnoticed, and she was offered a fancy new job. She hated Evil Principal and took it since she would no longer be teaching and there was only one computer class per strugglers. Evil Principal let her go with no shade. 2 weeks before she left, she wrote a letter for a scholarship program at a tech school in our district. Think high school for mega nerds. Mrs. B gave copies to me and Evil Principal and then departed. But in her absence, things started going south. Computers needed fixing, and an important note, locker thefts started occurring badly. I'm talking so bad that the superintendent installed cameras in the locker areas because parents were getting pissed. Now, we hold an assembly to honor the good students and all that stuff. It's a well-known fact of my deeds. The superintendent was there, Evil Principal, his wife, and bratty son. My parents didn't have the time. It was cool, I didn't care. They got down the list and then the story. How a teacher and student gave up their vacation. how they rescued the school from an ordering error, and how they wish the teacher was here to honor her but they can honor the student in her place. I grinned. I was being praised by the man I hated most. It was truly a wonderful moment, and then the principal declared, "Please, a round of applause to my son for saving the school's computers. Your actions have not gone unnoticed as you've gotten a full scholarship to the tech school." I didn't hear the rest as my world went red. My friends held me back so I wouldn't charge the stage. I was literally going to kill those mofos with my bare hands. I do remember the booing. I left for the day. I was livid. They just took credit for my work, stole my scholarship, treated Mrs. B poorly, and thought I'd take it. Revenge wasn't enough. No, I was going to destroy them. Weeks had passed by. I had exactly 1 month to do this, with a group of 8 who knew the whole story and were literally the 8 smartest students. The Revenge Council was formed. We never met on school grounds, never at the same place twice, followed a strict set of rules, and we formed our plan. They only helped me form the plan. I did the legwork. Phase 1. This was to destroy Evil Kid. So I spoke with the superintendent and told him the story of how I was being robbed. He said I'd need proof. That was easy. I already had it, but I needed time. So I said, let me collect it. He said he'd also look into it. I needed him to distract evil principal. Now, I didn't have access to school functions, but Mrs. B did. I contacted her and explained what happened. She was pissed. She said she'd come in and fix it. But I mentioned I needed to make sure this never happened again. The council had our 9th member. I just needed one thing, her login. She happily provided it as long as there was no trail. Cameras were now under my control. Remember the locker thefts? While cruising the cameras we confirmed who we all thought the thief was. And guess who the culprit was? The principal's son had used evil principal's login to access the locker combo sheet and was stealing stuff, covering his tracks by deleting camera footage. Not this time though, not this time. See, my dad had gotten a new laptop and gifted me his old one, at the time a $2,500 custom-made laptop. That thing was my main computer for years after this, but I had to risk it. So one day, I brought it to school, showed it off, played some heavy graphic games. The principal's son buddied up to me, his eyes lit up. The bait was set. He followed me, talking video games, inviting me to his place for some game sessions. As I'm walking to my locker, he turns around as per school rule not to see my combo. I place my laptop bag in. My next class is PE, and his was free study. Bait in the trap. He asks, "Aren't you afraid of it getting stolen?" I responded, "My dad can always get another from work. Plus," I point to the camera, "yeah, those catch everything. Plus I heard they caught the thief. Dad says when it's proven he's going to announce it." That's a relief. Get with me after school. I live close, and we can walk home and game out. I leave in the direction of PE, but it's not my class. I had free study. I stealth my way into the math class and tell the teacher I'm updating computers. He loves me and allows me and starts his class. I watch the cams. 20 minutes later, Evil Kid shows up with a garbage bag, pulls open my locker and grabs the laptop. He then grabbed the keyboard and mouse, stuffed it all in the garbage bag and left. He's wearing gloves. He thinks he's clever. I saved the file, waited another 20 minutes, solved a math problem for the class, looked to see the file for that area is deleted. I hide the copied files and restore them. Hiding was just a backup, didn't need it, but I wanted a copy too, which I still have to this day. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2. At lunch I go to the locker and pretend to discover my empty bag. I was with a council member. She runs to grab the school cop and they come as they are real cops. He radios for a squad car and a sheet unit. 5 cars showed up and they locked that school down. They were about to launch a locker search but decided to check the cameras. This was done in Evil Principal's office where his son happened to be playing games. Evil Principal comes in and gives him access. Some reason the file's corrupt. It's a recent problem that we're fixing. That Evil Kid smirked. Okay, guide me to today's cameras. And which one is that area? I think cam 6, wrong. No, it's cam 9. Here it is, I found it. File's fine. Evil Kid's face goes white. I wish I could tell you what happens next, but I was excused as they found their culprit. Then I see Evil Principal and his son walk out with 2 police escorts and I'm called back in. I get to see the footage. Cop 3 shows me that the principal's son was the one who stole it. I acted shocked. I'm good at acting too, sobbing slightly. He was my friend. How could he? Etc. 15 minutes later, he walks in and hands it to me. I'm so sorry. Please don't press charges. I just wanted to play it. I was going to put it back. It's out of his hands. As the value of the item was more than $1,000, I'm afraid it's a felony. Charges will be filed. Turn around and hands behind your back. Evil Principal's face sunk. His boy was the school thief. He used his dad's login to get locker combos and deleted the cameras. They searched his house and found over $5,000 of stolen property in his room. He was screwed, but I wasn't done yet. As he rotted in jail, it was evil principal's turn. Phase 3. This phase was not as long as I only had to do one thing. Word hadn't reached school yet. Evil principal covered his son with a coat as he was let out, and I was told not to say a word to anyone. But the superintendent was going to question me on the incident. After a long questioning, he brings up the proof. I said yes, I had it, and presented a copy of the letter Mrs. B wrote. He reads it, jaw-dropping, and quickly calls her. After a brief phone call, a meeting was set up. Evil principal, superintendent, and Mrs. B. My dad also came. We explained what happened, how I gave up my entire week to save the school's computers while my father came in and did free work, and how this could have been prevented if evil principal wasn't so cheap. But as with all great plans, you can't plan for everything. I expected a sacking, I got much more. See, it came to light how much the budget was and how much was really spent. So, where was the rest? Turns out evil principal stole it. He skimmed the top off a lot of budgets, but he thought he hid them well. Now the superintendent began to grill the principal. Why didn't the tech school get this letter? Evil principal in sobs responded, I had to approve all letters sent on the school's behalf. She no longer worked here. One-time excuse. Bullcrap, you had 2 weeks to send it. You just wanted to steal my scholarship for your thief of a kid. Every class on that floor heard me shout that. Dad and I left, and the superintendent and evil principal were going to. My dad then turned and said, if my son doesn't get the scholarship by tomorrow, then I want all the equipment I donated removed from all school computers. Needless to say, phase 3 complete. With 2 weeks of school left, the scholarship was mine. The whole story came out. Anyway, it turns out he skimmed all the money he saved, and we spent the next 2 weeks without evil principal in sight. To be honest, I never learned his fate, but I know evil kid's fate. It was the second to last day of school. Evil kid was out on bail or something. He was expelled. He decided to wait for me in the parking lot. As I was walking out, I see him. He sees me. I think he wants to apologize. Nope. He stares at me and walks away. I shrug and walk about a block away. 2 football jocks are across the street. Then I feel it. A hard punch to the back of my head. Evil kid just sucker punched me and had me on the ground. I flipped onto my back and then, well, I know it's low, but I fight dirty. As he's on top of me hitting my face, I plant a knee right into his balls, destroying them. I went hard. He falls over and seethes in pain. I'm pissed though, but one of the jocks runs over and separates us. Cops show up, same ones as before, and now he gets assault and possession of a deadly weapon because he had a knife. Off to the ER and then jail. The fall caused me to twist my ankle, and I was limping. After the dust clears, a few months go by. I found out he gets 10 years prison time, and I regret nothing. He should have just not stolen credit for my work. Some of you will say I went too far. I want you to know you are correct. Don't mess with me.